The Complete History of the Wookiees, Roar of the Forest. Chapter 1. The World Above and Below. Kashyyyk, often mispronounced by off-worlders unfamiliar with its native resonance, is not a world for the faint of heart. Orbiting a G-Tup star in the Midrim's Mitaranor sector, this verdant sphere is a paradox of stunning beauty and constant danger. Its surface is largely untouched by industrialization, a jungle world teeming with life, layered in vertical ecosystems so vast and ancient that even the oldest archives of the Jedi Order fail to fully map them. Towering wroshyr trees, some over 1,500 meters tall, dominate the landscape. These colossal organisms form the very bones of Wookiee civilization. They are homes, temples, marketplaces, and ancestral archives, grown carefully by hand and guided through ritual, not merely planted. To the untrained eye, Kashyyyk is simply a forest planet, but to the Wookiees, it is an ecosystem of spiritual and ecological depth. The planet's geography is uniquely vertical, divided into levels known in Shyriiwook as the Thikri. Each level of the forest holds different forms of life, increasingly hostile the further one descends. The uppermost levels, where light filters through in golden shafts, hosts the Wookiee cities like wroshyr, Kashyyyk, and Edianor. Here, nests of vine bridges link homes grown from the wroshyr bark itself. These homes hum with life, children practicing their first climbing rites, matriarchs tending to firefruit orchards, elders recounting ancient tales of skybound spirits. Beneath, the second layer is known as the Shadowlands. Here light dims and dangers multiply. The creatures that prowl the branches, such as the Sirin plant, the Terentatek like Catan, or the armored boleth, are deadly and often force-sensitive. Even trained Wookiee warriors enter the Shadowlands with reverence and caution. The Jedi Master Yoda once called it the most dangerous forest in the known galaxy, and not without reason. But Kashyyyk is not just defined by its verticality. The planet's oceans are warm, wide, and riddled with luminescent coral reefs that stretch under archipelagos of misty jungle isles. Here, the coastal Wookiees build long, curved skiffs powered by wood-bonded engines, an ancient hybrid technology developed without ever defiling the waters with pollutants. This balance, this mutual respect between technology and nature, lies at the core of Wookiee philosophy. The Force flows through Kashyyyk in a way unlike any other world, not merely because of its abundance of life, but because of how that life is honored. The Wookiees believe in the sanctity of the true wroshyr, a spiritual thread that connects all life on Kashyyyk. To them, cutting down a tree is not an act of utility, it is a sacred event, conducted only with prayer and communal consensus. Most Wookiee structures are shaped rather than built. A centuries-old process of song-assisted growth guides the trees themselves into forming domes, bridges, and balconies. This form of construction, known as roru-waru, uses vibrations, resonant tones from crystal harps, vocal harmonics, and ceremonial drums to gently shape the wroshyr bark over decades. The culture born of this world is one of resilience, unity, and rooted strength. The Wookiees do not view themselves as above their environment, but as its guardians. They do not tame the wild, they survive within it. Their language, Shyriiwook, is a blend of growls, roars, and complex harmonic rhythms. Though unpronounceable by most other species, it is rich with tone and meaning, and often carries spiritual inflections. Words are chosen not just for meaning, but for energy. A Wookiee's roar can express fury or joy, reverence or mourning with equal potency. Children are raised communally with extended families, called raktor, sharing the burdens and joys of upbringing. A child's early years are marked by rites of passage, the tree climb, where they must ascend their home wroshyr to earn their climbing claws, the shadow walk, a supervised descent into the safer layers of the Shadowlands, and the Song of Naming, a melodic ritual where the child's life roar is given. Each Wookiee wears a bandolier, not just as a functional item, but as a chronicle. Beads, claws, tokens, and glyphs attached to it recount achievements, battles, losses, and vows. To touch another Wookiee's bandolier without permission is a grave insult. Similarly, the bowcaster is not merely a weapon, it is an heirloom, crafted by hand and tuned to the user's raw resonance. Wookiee warriors will pass their bowcasters through generations, often inscribing them with poetry or the names of honored kin. Among the oldest of their beliefs is the legend of the sky spirits, immortal guardians who roam the stars in wroshyr-shaped starships, watching over Kashyyyk from above. Though dismissed by most scholars as myth, these stories endure, often passed in the form of cradle roars to infants or campfire chants during the storm season. Whether these spirits are metaphors for Jedi or actual Force apparitions remains debated among both Wookiee shamans and Republic researchers. Kashyyyk's sacred places, such as the Hall of Roots in Rwokoro or the Singing Basin atop Mount Ralaran, are pilgrimage sites. Here, Wookiees come not to ask for power, but to listen, to feel the pulse of their world and reaffirm their place in its cycles. Even the lowest caste of Wookiee society, those born with genetic abnormalities or deformities, are treated with care, believed to possess a unique connection to the ancestral tree spirits. But the most enduring aspect of Kashyyyk is how it feels to those who visit. Jedi who walk its bridges describe a stillness unlike any other. Smugglers call it the beast's cradle, wild yet welcoming. Even Imperial officers, cold and efficient, noted the planet's hypnotic atmosphere before turning it to ash and slavery. For every traveler, Kashyyyk presents a lesson that strength need not be loud, that harmony can grow in the heart of chaos, and that those who climb together endure. In many ways, Kashyyyk is not merely the Wookiee homeworld, it is their soul, given form in towering branches and growled lullabies. Its stories are carved not in stone but in bark, and whispered not in words but in the thunderous roar of a people bound to their world by unbreakable roots. Chapter 2. The Heart of the Wookiee. To understand a Wookiee is to accept that strength and gentleness are not opposites but companions. Towering over most humanoids, Wookiees average over 7 feet tall, with dense fur coats ranging from deep mahogany to golden brown, black, or rare albino hues. Their eyes, though often shadowed by heavy brows, gleam with intelligence and depth. Beneath that shaggy exterior lies a physiology adapted for survival in one of the most dangerous biospheres in the galaxy. Hyperdense musculature, retractable climbing claws, and vocal cords capable of emitting roars that shake stone. But raw power is only a fragment of who they are. The core of Wookiee identity is a concept known as Ahura, loosely translated as heart honor. It's more than integrity, it is the guiding force of a Wookiee's life. It dictates duty to one's family, the tribe, and the forest. To violate Ahura is to lose not just status, but spirit. Wookiees have been known to self-exile into the Shadowlands when they feel they have brought shame to their name, believing only the forest's judgment can cleanse their guilt. From birth, Wookiees are taught that loyalty is more than social. It is sacred. The life debt, perhaps the most famous of their customs, is an oath taken when a Wookiee believes their life has been saved in a manner so profound it cannot be repaid through a single act. This is no small promise. Once invoked, the Wookiee dedicates their entire being to the protection and service of the one to whom the debt is owed, regardless of personal risk. Chewbacca's life debt to Han Solo, for example, is a tale woven into galactic legend. Yet many misunderstand it as servitude. In truth, it is a gift, freely given, often accompanied by rituals involving the family and elders of the clan. Wookiee family structures, or raktur, are expansive. Unlike many species that limit parenting to biological pairs, Wookiees believe the community raises the child. Multiple parental figures, biological or chosen, participate in upbringing, discipline, and education. There is little room for selfishness. Bonds are built through shared trial, communal meals, ceremonial storytelling, and the sacred climbing rites. One such rite, the Rakara Path, involves leading adolescents through a gauntlet of natural trials within the mid-layers of the forest. It is as much spiritual as physical, with youths required to meditate beneath the sky roots or sing to the branches of the great trees. Wookiees do not write in the traditional sense. They etch, weave, sing and burn their history into the living wood. Their architecture is a testament to their bond with nature, their homes curving with the trees, never against. Shaping bark with heat and harmonics, Wookiee artisans build from life rather than upon it. Entire generations live in the same arboreal structures, their walls bearing symbols of birth, war, love, and death. Ritual and celebration are constant rhythms in Wookiee life. Their most beloved holiday, Life Day, originated as a solstice festival marking the planetary orbit, but grew into a symbol of peace and renewal, especially during the Empire's oppression. During Life Day, Wookiees gather around the Tree of Life in Rubwagoro, lighting red orbs while chanting ancestral songs. For those in exile or diaspora, Life Day is an anchor to home, often celebrated quietly, even in the depths of Imperial prisons. Despite their peaceful values, Wookiees are not pacifists. Their warriors are some of the most formidable in the galaxy. A single Wookiee berserker has been known to overwhelm squads of trained soldiers, not through rage, but precision and ferocity honed through a lifetime in a hostile world. They do not relish battle, but they do not shrink from it. Honor demands that strength be used wisely and never wastefully. Their weapon of choice, the bowcaster, reflects this balance. More than a blaster, it is a personalized energy crossbow capable of firing quarrels charged with explosive energy. Each is built by the user, crafted over months, sometimes years, and bound with ancestral wood and metal. Bowcasters are attuned to the user's grip and raw frequency. For a Wookiee to lend their bowcaster is equivalent to entrusting someone with their soul. One of the few places where outsiders are welcomed into deeper Wookiee culture is during the wroshyr, a communal meal where stories are shared through song and scent. Wookiees possess an acute sense of smell, and their cooking often involves aromatic symbols of their mood and message. A spicy root stew might represent a tale of lost love, while slow-cooked Yorop meat seasoned with fire sap speaks of triumph. Meals are accompanied by vocal harmonics. Chant roars layered with rhythmic claps and drum echoes, forming the oral tradition that has passed knowledge down since before the Republic's founding. Their spirituality, while not organized like many Force-centric religions, is deeply felt. They speak of the wroshyr, the life web that connects all beings and flows through Kashyyyk. Though not all are Force-sensitive, many Wookiees have a natural affinity to its balance, leading the Jedi to establish quiet relations with the elders of Ruokororo as early as the Tyonese War era. Jedi masters like Tivoca and Quinlan Vos often described Wookiees as tuned to the natural hum of the galaxy. Some elders meditate for days upon the roots of the oldest trees, seeking visions not through power but stillness. Tragedy, too, shapes the heart of the Wookiee, the destruction of forest temples, the enslavement of families, the pollution of sacred groves. These wounds do not fade easily. Yet, even in grief, Wookiees hold fast to wroshyr. Their mourning rites involve not just keening roars, but the planting of root bundles, trees that bear blue flowers when the memory of the deceased brings peace. Generations later, these trees bloom like beacons, marking the endurance of love and legacy. The Galactic community often sees Wookiees as brutes or beasts, a perception rooted in misunderstanding and prejudice. But to those who take the time to listen, to truly listen, they find a people of profound depth. A people who carry their history not in words, but in scars, in songs, and in the sacred beat of the forest heart. There is an old Wookiee proverb, "A branch that bends in the wind endures the storm. In the quiet rustle of Kashyyyk's high canopies, that branch is always growing, and the Wookiee spirit with it." Chapter 3. Songs in the Trees. Wookiee Society and Culture. When a Wookiee walks through the village paths of Rukuroro or along the cantilevered balconies of Kashyyyk, they are surrounded not just by architecture but by memory, woven into every living surface. The very trees they walk upon hum with history. This is no metaphor. Wookiee society is built upon the organic fabric of tradition, ecology, and collective memory, and it is passed on through what they call the wroshyr, the song of being. These ancient harmonic chants echo softly in community halls, ritual fires, and even children's play. It is not unusual to hear a low, melodic growl reverberate across a bridge as a youngling recites a story about the stars, the seasons, or a fallen ancestor. Culture, to a Wookiee, is not learned in books, but absorbed through living. At the heart of every Wookiee village is the wroshyr, a communal gathering space grown into a dome from the branches of multiple wroshyr trees, each contributed by a family clan. Inside this space, conflict is resolved, decisions are debated, and generations gather to share the rabaru. The song is a sacred rite. When a child is born, the elder clan members gather to intone a melody reflecting the child's spirit, a tune unique in its rhythm and harmony. It may reflect strength, curiosity, sorrow, or joy. That melody follows the Wookiee through life. It is sung at bonding ceremonies, at council meetings, and ultimately at their funeral, when they are returned to the roots. Hierarchy among Wookiees is not defined by conquest or wealth, but by contribution and wisdom. Elders lead not because of age alone, but due to a lifetime of service, sacrifice, and balanced judgment. Clan leaders, known as Arkor, must earn their status through demonstration of wroshyr. It is not uncommon for a younger Wookiee to refuse a title if they believe an elder better represents the spirit of the people. The Arkor acts more like a steward than a ruler, deferring to council votes and clan consensus on matters of trade, defense, and justice. Clans themselves are vast, stretching across villages and sometimes continents. Family loyalty runs deep, often crossing into other tribes through ceremonial exchanges. These interclan connections are critical for larger Wookiee events like the Hataka, a grand convergence that occurs once every 4 seasons under the twin moons of Kashyyyk. During this time, thousands gather to reaffirm bonds, trade sacred materials, honor ancestors, and compete in ritual games like Shyriiwook, a physically demanding contest that tests strength, balance, and harmony with the trees. Education for young Wookiees is practical and communal. Apprenticeships begin early, often by age 3. A child with an ear for melody might be sent to study under a songkeeper, while one with strong paws and spatial awareness might learn the patient art of bowcaster construction or canopy bridge design. Skills are passed hand to hand, from parent to child, elder to youth. Trial is preferred over lecture. A lesson learned after falling from a high branch, safely tethered, is remembered longer than one merely told. Yet Wookiee culture is not static. They have incorporated off-world knowledge into their systems where it honors wroshyr. For example, hollow projectors adapted with wroshyr interfaces are used to share off-world news or relay messages from exiled family members. But never are these systems placed above the sacred centers of their villages, nor are they allowed to disrupt the song. Even Republic embassies were once built around, rather than through, local structures, at the Wookiees' demand. Art among the Wookiees is lived. Their sculptors do not carve, but coax wood to grow into shape using a practice known as wroshyr. Their musicians craft wind horns from branch hollows, tuning them by time of day and phase of moon. Their storytellers mark bark with heated claws in curling patterns that resemble roars frozen in time. Each design is a symphony of meaning, no two symbols alike. And while outsiders often mistake Wookiees for primitive due to their love of tradition and natural living, the truth is more nuanced. Wookiees possess keen scientific understanding of their world's ecosystems, advanced genetic techniques for cultivating wroshyr hybrids, and a finely tuned astronomical system. Their fleets, when deployed, are agile and organic in design, crafted from repurposed freighters and armaments integrated into bonded living wood, allowing for camouflage, speed, and resilience. Religion, while never institutionalized, finds its form in reverence. The oldest and most sacred of these expressions are the shrines of the deep roots, where Wookiees descend into the basal shadowlands to commune with what they believe are the world's ancient spirits. In silence and darkness, warriors, shamans, and mothers alike offer food, trinkets, or songs to the soil. It is said that Kashyyyk remembers, and that when a Wookiee dies, their spirit becomes one with the roots of their clan's tree. Certain Wookiees, touched more deeply by this connection, become wroshyr, forest speakers. Sensitive to the Force, or some natural echo of it, these individuals often speak in riddles or visions, serving as healers, guides, and mediators in times of strife. Some say the wroshyr can speak with the forest itself. Jedi who have trained alongside these mystics speak of their quiet insight and terrifying accuracy. Perhaps the most enduring and visible symbol of Wookiee society is the bandolier. More than a practical item, it is a living record. Each talisman, patch, and carving tells a story, a victory, a death, a vow taken or broken. In battle, enemies are sometimes granted space on the bandolier, proof that even foes deserve remembrance. For a Wookiee to remove their bandolier is to enter a state of Galactic, a ritual of mourning or renewal. They do so only in deep shame or transformative rebirth, and it is often accompanied by isolation in the Shadowlands. Love, too, takes a sacred shape in Wookiee culture. Courtship is not a private affair, it is communal, ritualized, and often involves climbing contests, cooperative music, and cooking feats that span days. Mates are chosen not for beauty but for spirit, the way their song harmonizes with yours. Bonding ceremonies, known as ator, involve not just vows but a duet of roars sung beneath the twilight sky, heard by every member of the tribe. As the galaxy spun into war and the Empire spread its shadow, Wookiees did not forget who they were. Their society remained intact, even under occupation. Slaves would still whisper the song. Exiled warriors would braid their bandoliers with bark from their childhood trees. In the face of atrocity, the Wookiees did what they have always done. They endured, they remembered, and they roared. For in every note sung from the heights of a wroshyr bridge or growled in defiance from a slave pen, the Wookiees carried their culture, a culture grown, not built, sung, not written, lived, not imposed. Chapter 4. Scars of the Chains, the Age of Slavery. To the Wookiees, freedom is not an abstract concept. It is the very air they breathe, the sway of the branches above, the sacred root paths beneath their feet. When that freedom was taken, it tore at more than their bodies. It scarred their soul. The age of slavery did not begin with the Empire. For centuries, the Wookiees were eyed by opportunistic traders, warlords, and syndicates, especially during times when Republic oversight faltered. But it was the Galactic Empire that industrialized their enslavement and etched pain into the heartwood of Kashyyyk. Long before the first stormtrooper boots touched Wookiee soil, slaving factions such as the Zygerians and Trandoshan raiders had already tested the resolve of Kashyyyk's defenders. The Trandoshans, natural enemies of the Wookiees due to a cultural obsession with hunting and dominance, made sport of abducting individuals from isolated villages. Wookiee children became trophies, elders were flayed to make decorative hides. These raids were fueled by a religious fervor. The Trandoshan worship of the scorekeeper demanded tallies of victories, and no prey was more honored than the mighty Wookiee. Despite this, Kashyyyk endured. Villages were built higher, watchers were stationed in the upper canopy, signal drums warned of approaching ships. But the arrival of the Empire was like a planetary invasion waged in shadow, bureaucracy, and brute force. After Order 66 and the fall of the Jedi, the new Galactic Empire moved quickly to seize Kashyyyk, declaring it a protectorate for its own security. The Wookiees, who had been loyal allies of the Republic and fought alongside Jedi in the Clone Wars, were betrayed almost overnight. Officially, Kashyyyk was occupied for pacification. In reality, it became a source of organic labor to feed the ravenous needs of the Imperial war machine. The Wookiees were strong, intelligent, and could withstand hazardous environments. On planets like Kessel, they were forced to mine spice in toxic caverns. On Sullust, they built weapons under constant threat of incineration. On Kashyyyk itself, they were forced to cut down their own forests. Sacred groves reduced to fuel for starships. Enslavement camps were established across the planet's equatorial regions and in key mid-canopy zones. Orbital tethers ensured constant transport of bodies to and from orbiting prison barges. The village of Wroshyr, once a cultural heart, was defiled. Its great tree hollowed out to house an Imperial garrison. Bandoliers were banned, singing was forbidden. Elder gatherings were criminalized, yet the Wookiees, ever resilient, sang in secret. They carved songs into the backs of floor panels. They passed bandoliers hand to hand through slaver markets. Even in chains, they remembered. The slave masters underestimated what it meant to chain a people who communed with the stars and soil. Small uprisings occurred within months of the first occupation. A famous early revolt took place in the Star Basin, where a unit of conscripted Wookiees led by a warrior named wroshyr overpowered their Trandoshan guards and held the refinery for 6 days before the Empire brought down a TIE bomber wing to glass the jungle. wroshy's final act was to ignite the fuel line with his own bowcaster, destroying the facility and himself. These stories became legend, whispered by Wookiee slaves across the galaxy. For every Wookiee captured, another 2 went into hiding. Guerrilla movements flourished in the high boughs. Jedi fugitive Kento Marek fought alongside Wookiees, helping form a hidden network of cells that sabotaged Imperial patrols, guided escaped slaves, and funneled information to sympathetic senators like Bail Organa. Entire groves became traps. Wookiee engineers rigged walkways to collapse, shaped trees into deadfalls, and used the very jungle as a weapon. Still, the toll was immense. Families were torn apart. Wookiee children raised in Imperial camps often never heard the song. Those who returned years later bore scars not just of the flesh, but of the spirit. Yet Wookiees are not a people to give in to despair. They mourned, yes, but they also resisted, adapted, and remembered. In the Shadowlands, circles of elder warriors held mourning songs at midnight, their roars echoing upward, defying Imperial ears. In off-world factories, Wookiee workers would hum ancient melodies while calibrating engines, infusing each task with a piece of themselves, even in defiance. One of the darkest chapters of this era was the Imperial project known as Dark Branch. Seeking to create genetically enhanced laborers, the Empire experimented on Wookiees to create docile, obedient hybrids. Many died. Those who survived were often driven mad, but some escaped. Feral, powerful, and driven by rage, these Wookiees, though altered, were still brothers and sisters, and the tribes of Kashyyyk took them in, cared for them, and wept for what they had become. When the rebellion took root, Wookiees were among its earliest unofficial allies. Despite the risk, they harbored agents, supplied information, and on more than one occasion opened fire on Imperial ships with stolen turbo lasers. Chewbacca, perhaps the most famous Wookiee of the era, symbolized this alliance. His bond with Han Solo, forged through the life debt, reminded the galaxy that Wookiees did not fight for dominance, but for loyalty, that in saving another, they reclaimed pieces of their own freedom. The liberation of Kashyyyk came not as a singular event, but a cascade. As the rebellion grew in power, and the Empire began to fracture after Endor, a coordinated uprising, supported by rebel units, launched from Bothawi and Moncala, struck key orbital platforms. Simultaneously, internal resistance on the surface disabled anti-aircraft arrays and unleashed a full-scale revolt. The battle for Wroshyr lasted 3 days. By the end, the great tree burned, but the Wookiees held the ground. The scars of slavery remain. Entire generations lost, songs forgotten, groves desecrated. But Wookiees have never been a people defined by what is taken from them. They are defined by what they preserve, what they rebuild, and what they pass on. Their freedom was reclaimed, not granted. And it echoes still in the branches of Kashyyyk, in the guttural defiance of their voices, in every bowcaster bolt fired in memory of those who never came home. Wookiees do not forget. They etch the names of the fallen into bark. They weave their stories into bandoliers. They pass them to the young, who will one day sing them to the stars. Chapter 5. Warriors of the Green Sky. Wookiees in Warfare. To outsiders, the Wookiee is often reduced to a towering brute, a berserker who growls, smashes, and tears through battlefields with primitive fury, but to make this assumption is to misunderstand the Wookiees entirely. Yes, they are powerful. Their strength is legendary, able to tear droids apart or hurl grown men across starships, but their approach to warfare is neither savage nor mindless. It is structured, ritualized, and rooted deeply in the natural and cultural fabric of Kashyyyk. When a Wookiee goes to war, they carry with them not only a weapon, but the legacy of their ancestors, the protection of their clan, and the silence of the forest. From an early age, Wookiee youth are trained not just in combat, but in survival, stealth, and intuition. Much of their warfare is inspired by the ways of the forest. The tree cat stalks its prey without being seen. The garruled tiger waits patiently before pouncing with precise lethality. Young Wookiees practice these same instincts during Tar-Ak-Vor, an ancient rite of passage requiring them to hunt and evade each other deep within the Shadowlands with no weapons, relying only on their senses. Those who succeed are recognized as wroshyr, defenders of the village. Weapons are sacred. The bowcaster is perhaps the most iconic, an energy bolt weapon that launches explosive quarrels via magnetic acceleration. Unlike standard blasters, a bowcaster is not mass-produced. It is forged by hand, often with a family member's guidance and attuned to the user's strength and grip. Some Wookiees spend years modifying their bowcaster, etching clan symbols or embedding strips of bark from sacred trees. A warrior without their bowcaster is not considered dishonored, but incomplete, like a singer without a voice. Wookiee armor is light and flexible, crafted from natural fibers infused with resin and bark from the wroshyr trees. It is designed for mobility rather than brute protection. The philosophy is simple: do not be struck. Move like the leaves in the wind. During the Clone Wars, many Wookiees adapted armor from fallen clone troopers, blending Republic tech with tribal craftsmanship. These hybrid suits reflected the Wookiees' ability to adapt while still honoring tradition. Military organization among the Wookiees is decentralized. Clans field their own fighters under the guidance of elected war leaders, known as Kashyyyk. When multiple clans join forces, as they did during the Battle of Kashyyyk, these Kashyyyk form a council of war, often led by the elder most experienced in galactic tactics. During the Clone Wars, the most famous of these was Tarfful, a towering leader known for his deep baritone roar and his alliance with Jedi masters like Yoda and Luminara Unduli. Tarfful's ability to blend Wookiee instinct with Republic strategy made him invaluable. The Wookiees' contributions during the Clone Wars cannot be overstated. When the Separatists attempted to seize control of Kashyyyk for its strategic hyperspace lanes, the Wookiees stood as a bulwark against the droid army. In battles around Kashyyyk and the coasts of Huskarra Lake, Wookiee warriors fought alongside clone troopers, using guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver droid walkers and employ vertical ambushes from the trees. Hollow recordings of the battles show Wookiees leaping from canopy to canopy, hurling explosive canisters and engaging in close-quarters combat that overwhelmed even the most advanced B-2 battle droids. Their knowledge of terrain was their greatest weapon. No map could replicate the nuanced pathways Wookiees had walked since childhood. They could disappear into the trees, re-emerge miles away, and strike with precision. This made Kashyyyk one of the most difficult planets for the Separatists, and later the Empire, to control. For every open conflict, a dozen small skirmishes played out in the shadows. Even in space, Wookiees have proven themselves formidable. Their starships, often constructed from hybrid alloys and grown materials, are uniquely resilient. Crewed by warriors trained in both technical and combat roles, Wookiee fighters have been spotted engaging pirates, slavers, and Imperial ships, with tactics that blend instinct with engineering. The wroshyr Falcon, a legendary prototype scout ship from the Wookiee Defense Guild, was said to have evaded 3 Star Destroyers during a blockade run through the Maelstrom Nebula. Despite their might, Wookiees do not crave war. Every battle is mourned. Songs are sung for the fallen, enemy and ally alike. After the Battle of the Blasted Grove, where 300 Wookiees held off a Trandoshan invasion force for 8 days, the survivors held a vigil not just for their kin, but for the Trandoshans who died. "Let the forest judge us all," the Wroshyr said, placing bones of both species at the foot of the Great Root. It was a gesture of peace. It was ignored. This complexity continues in the Wookiee view of death and honor. Dying in battle is not always seen as glorious. A death must be meaningful. Pointless bloodshed earns no song. Warriors who die protecting others, completing a vow, or defending the forest are honored with Arurawar, the chant of the fallen. Their bandoliers are passed to their kin, and their names inscribed in the hollow roots of their family's tree. It is said that the greatest warrior in Wookiee history was a female chieftain known as Sarvaka the Flame. Her bowcaster was too large for most Wookiees to lift. She led a united warband against the invading fleets of the Crimson Dawn during the Syndicate rebellions. She refused Republic aid, claiming the forest would protect its own. In the end, she died atop the canopy, standing defiant as flames engulfed her tree. Her final roar was said to shake the sky. To this day, no Wookiee crafts a bowcaster without invoking her name. From slavers to empires, Wookiees have fought every form of oppression the galaxy has devised. Yet their victories are not always of the battlefield. They have won in the way they preserved themselves, in the way they sing, in the way they rise after every fall. A Wookiee warrior is not just a fighter. They are a keeper of memory, a guardian of balance, and a child of the green sky. Chapter 6. Among the Stars, Wookiees in the Galactic Stage. Kashyyyk, for all its towering trees and ancient tradition, was never entirely isolated. Long before the rise of the Republic or the tyranny of the Empire, Wookiees had made contact with other species. Through trade, through skirmish, and through the slow tendrils of hyperspace exploration. Yet it wasn't until the Galactic Republic formally charted Kashyyyk that the Wookiees truly stepped onto the galactic stage. From then on, they were no longer just forest dwellers or mythic warriors of the Outer Rim. They were citizens of a larger galaxy, and with that came both opportunity and peril. The Wookiees' first formal role in the Republic came through mutual benefit. Their technological aptitude, particularly in engineering and metallurgy, was surprisingly advanced. Many off-worlders, dazzled by their tribal aesthetic and jungle lifestyle, failed to grasp the sophistication with which Wookiees approached mechanics. Bowcasters were just one example. Their understanding of fusion technology, starship maintenance, and material resistance made them valuable in the shipyards of the Mid-Rim and beyond. Skilled Wookiee engineers could be found working on Mon Calamari cruisers, Corellian freighters, and even on rare Republic diplomatic vessels. Wookiees also became envoys, reluctant at first but increasingly vital. Their honesty and sense of honor made them appealing to cultures weary of deception or intrigue. The Galactic Senate, for all its bureaucracy, often welcomed Wookiee representatives for their straightforward manner. These senators, usually clan elders, spoke few words but carried great weight. In an age of politicking, a single guttural statement from a Wookiee could silence a room, yet they always returned home, never staying long. Kashyyyk was their route. The stars might beckon, but the forest was family. One of the first prominent Wookiees to travel beyond Kashyyyk's orbit in an official capacity was Galactic of Clan Tarfful, a former war leader who brokered peace during the Vrandor conflicts. Gorolik's legend grew after he disarmed a Rhodian assassin with nothing but a drinking horn and then negotiated a non-aggression pact using the assassin's own datapad. His exploits paved the way for a generation of Wookiees who saw the galaxy not as a threat but as a challenge, an open sky to test their strength, wisdom and endurance. Still, integration with galactic civilization brought complexities. Off-worlder technology altered Wookiee customs. Faster-than-light communication changed how clans shared stories. Black market traders sought to profit from Wookiee artifacts, often mislabeling sacred items as primitive trinkets. Cultural exploitation was rampant. More than once, Wookiee warriors returned from service in the Republic only to find their groves damaged or their rites mocked by tourists. The Clone Wars thrust the Wookiees deeper into galactic affairs. No longer observers or occasional diplomats, they became frontline allies of the Jedi. Kashyyyk's strategic position made it essential. The Republic built outposts, staging grounds, and intelligence stations in the higher branches. In turn, Wookiee leaders worked with Jedi generals like Yoda and Luminara Unduli, not out of obedience, but mutual respect. Jedi and Wookiee alike valued discipline, harmony with nature, and the concept of life as a sacred bond. But as the war dragged on, that bond was tested. When Order 66 was executed and Jedi across the galaxy were betrayed by their clone soldiers, Kashyyyk became one of the few places where Jedi found sanctuary. Yoda himself was spirited away by Wookiee allies, including the mighty Tarfful and the future rebel hero Chewbacca. Their act of defiance would make Kashyyyk a target for years to come. The Empire does not forgive sanctuary. The Imperial era was the darkest time for Wookiees on the galactic stage. Stripped of status, declared dangerous and unruly, they became laborers, servants and targets. Yet even then, their reputation never died. Smugglers spoke in hushed awe of Wookiee strength. Imperial officers carried stun cuffs rated specifically for Wookiee resistance. In criminal cantinas and seedy spaceports, the sight of a towering Wookiee in armor silenced rooms. Their presence was mythic, part hero, part ghost of a better galaxy. Many Wookiees joined the growing rebellion, some overtly, others in secret. Chewbacca remains the most famous, but dozens of clans sent warriors, saboteurs, and scouts to fight the Empire in every sector. Their skills in stealth, endurance, and wilderness survival made them ideal for missions few others would attempt. On the frozen moons of Vandor, a Wookiee demolitionist named Quaka held off a squad of death troopers by causing an avalanche with thermal detonators. On Nal Hutta, a Wookiee spy disguised himself as a slave, only to poison an entire Hutt syndicate with a viral agent smuggled in his fur. Even after the fall of the Empire, Wookiees continued to influence galactic politics. The New Republic recognized Kashyyyk as a sovereign system and gave Wookiees the right to self-govern, but the scars of war remained. Lost villages, dispersed clans, entire generations gone. Yet they did not wallow. Wookiees rebuilt, replanted, and reconnected with their kin across the stars. Their diaspora became a strength. Today, Wookiees can be found on dozens of worlds. Engineers, artists, bounty hunters, and diplomats. While most eventually return to Kashyyyk, many carry its values wherever they go. They form root circles, miniature groves, and even open Wookiee schools to teach the next generation the old songs, the proper construction of bowcasters, and the history of the clan wars. To encounter a Wookiee in the galaxy is to glimpse Kashyyyk itself. Their eyes carry the forest, their roar echoes the storm, and their presence is a reminder that even a people rooted in tradition can stand tall among the stars. Their stories are not bound to one world. They are scattered across hyperspace lanes and freighter hulls. They walk the halls of Coruscant, the dunes of Tatooine, and the frost of Ilum, and in every corner of the galaxy, when a Wookiee stands, they carry more than their own weight. They carry the strength of an entire world. Chapter 7. The Bonds That Bind, Life, Love and Family in Wookiee Culture. To understand the soul of a Wookiee, one must begin not with war or politics, but with family. not merely in the biological sense, but in the deeply rooted social and spiritual networks that govern nearly every aspect of Wookiee life. The Wookiees do not view themselves as individuals first, but as branches of a great tree, one whose roots stretch through generations and whose leaves brush against the stars. The foundation of Wookiee society is the clan, or rukoro. Clans are extended family groups bound not just by blood, but by shared tradition, territory, and song. Every Wookiee belongs to a clan, and every clan traces its lineage through oral history, sacred carvings, and ceremonial bark scrolls. These lineages are meticulously preserved. To forget a name is to dishonor one's past. To speak an ancestor's name in ritual is to honor them in the present. Within the clan structure, each member has a role, from scouts and builders to storytellers and healers. Leadership is earned, not inherited, with elders chosen for their wisdom, not simply their age. The Wookiee language, Shyriiwook, contains over 6 distinct terms for types of kinship. There are words for the bond between littermates, for a parent's second child, for an uncle who is also a combat mentor. This intricate vocabulary reflects the nuance of Wookiee relationships, where social roles overlap and deepen across time. Bonds are celebrated with ritual gatherings called Warak, where families chant ancestral names in descending order until the youngest of the clan speaks their own, completing the chain. Romance among Wookiees is similarly layered. Courtship is marked not by grand gestures, but by acts of service and shared labor. A Wookiee might build a skybridge between 2 homes as a token of intent, or hunt for rare fruits from the deep forest to present at a moonlight vigil. Love is not claimed but proven, through action, sacrifice, and song. When 2 Wookiees choose to bond, they undergo the wroshyr, a union ceremony where both declare their loyalty not only to one another, but to each other's clans. It is said the trees themselves respond to such unions, humming gently in the wind when true bonds are made. Parenthood is communal. While children are raised by their birth parents, responsibility is shared among the entire clan. A cub's first steps are witnessed by elders and youth alike. Their first words are sung back to them in playful chant. From a young age, Wookiee children are encouraged to climb, to explore, and to speak their minds. They are not scolded for loudness or energy. These are seen as signs of a strong spirit. Discipline is gentle and rooted in storytelling. Parables about overreaching branches or greedy roots that remind them to grow wisely. Education is both practical and sacred. Children learn to read bark scrolls, to listen for forest sounds that signal danger or change, and to identify the thousands of species that inhabit the wroshyr canopy. They are taught the value of balance, that strength without compassion is destructive, and that knowledge without humility is hollow. Elder storytellers, known as wroshyr, play a vital role in this process. Through dramatic retellings of ancient battles, hunts, and love stories, they pass on moral lessons and cultural identity. Community gatherings are frequent. The Wookiee calendar includes dozens of seasonal festivals, each tied to the moon phases, rainfall patterns, or the migration of sacred beasts. One of the most beloved is Urukopora, the festival of falling leaves, which celebrates the cycle of change and rebirth. During this time, clans from across Kashyyyk gather in elevated plazas, hanging woven lanterns from the branches and singing the names of those who have passed. Meals are shared, disputes are resolved, and young Wookiees may even undergo coming-of-age rituals. Wookiee cuisine is a sensory celebration. Root stews, fermented vine drinks, roasted tree nuts glazed in sap, these are more than meals. They are expressions of clan identity and regional pride. Each clan has its own version of wroshyr bark broth, some adding sea herbs from the coastal trees, others mixing in smoked fruit beetles. Meals are often prepared communally, and it is considered a grave insult to refuse a shared bowl. The bond between Wookiees and nature is not merely practical, it is spiritual. Trees are more than shelter, they are ancestors. Rivers are voices, storms are moods of the forest's will. Many Wookiees believe in Rowaka, the breath of the world, a spiritual force that guides growth, decay, and renewal. Temples are grown, not built, hollowed into trees that volunteer themselves through ritual. Meditation occurs on high balconies where the air is thinnest, and chants are designed to harmonize with the wind. Even in mourning, Wookiees find unity. Death is not feared, but honored. When a Wookiee dies, their body is placed in the roots of their family's tree, returned to the soil with blessings of bark and flame. The clan sings Aram Arau, the farewell howl, a haunting melody that echoes across the forest for miles. It is said that when the howl is pure, the spirit has passed peacefully. If the wind stutters or shifts, it may mean the spirit is restless, prompting nights of vigil and firelit prayer. In exile or diaspora, Wookiees recreate these structures. On rebel starships, small root circles are carved into the walls. On outer rim settlements, Wookiees plant trees and hold vigil to teach their children the old songs. Even in captivity, Wookiee prisoners will braid their fur in ritual patterns to remember who they are. They carry Kashyyyk with them, not in objects, but in memory, in behavior, in howl. This cultural resilience is perhaps the most awe-inspiring facet of Wookiee life. Despite slavery, warfare, exploitation, and centuries of misunderstanding, they have never lost themselves. The galaxy may take their trees, their weapons, their homes, but it cannot take their roots. Those run too deep. In every Wookiee roar, there is a reminder that strength is not just muscle, it is memory, it is family. It is the unbroken thread of song that binds one to all. Wookiees are not a species of isolation, they are a community, and in that community, in that love and loss and howl and flame, lies a galaxy's worth of wisdom. Chapter 8. Scars Beneath the Canopy, the Struggle Against Slavery. To speak of the Wookiees is to speak of freedom, raw, vital, elemental. Yet woven through the towering branches of Kashyyyk story is a darker truth, one not sung by campfire or celebrated in ritual, but remembered in scars and silence. That truth is slavery. For centuries, Wookiees have faced capture, bondage, and exploitation at the hands of those who saw not a proud species, but living tools. Brute labor to fuel galactic ambition. No chapter of their history is more painful, nor more revealing of their indomitable spirit. Slavery is not a concept native to Kashyyyk. In Wookiee society, even the weakest of the clan is afforded dignity and a voice. The idea of one being owning another is alien to their worldview. So when slavers first came, long before the Empire, even before the Republic's earliest expansion, it struck not only at their bodies, but at the very foundation of their culture. Early hot crime syndicates, seeking strong laborers to mine spice and metals on inhospitable worlds, turned their gaze to Kashyyyk. Wookiee resistance was fierce, but the slavers were cunning. They came with nets that paralyzed limbs, sonic weapons that disoriented even the keenest senses, and deception. Some clans were lured by false trade, only to have entire families vanish in a single night. Even during the Republic era, the Outer Rim was a patchwork of law and lawlessness. While the Jedi and Senate spoke of justice, many planets, particularly those under Hutt influence or outside firm jurisdiction, allowed slave markets to flourish in shadow. Wookiees became a staple in these circles. Their strength made them ideal for construction on inhospitable planets. Their endurance perfect for mining, and their reputations as fearsome fighters led many to be used as gladiators in bloodsport arenas. In the underbelly of Nar Shaddaa, entire syndicates were built around trafficking Wookiees, often with forged documentation that passed as legal indenture under corrupt planetary codes. Yet even in chains, Wookiees resisted. Entire slave revolts were whispered about in the back alleys of smugglers' dens. On the sulphurous mines of Corvus 9, a single Wookiee named Shyriiwook is said to have broken his electro-binders and led an uprising that saw an entire labor colony escape to the swamps. On Kessel, where spice-addicted guards ruled through cruelty, Wookiees tunneled beneath their cells with clawed hands, forming escape routes for future generations. Their songs, though often forbidden, would echo faintly through the halls, reminding others they were not broken, only caged. Then came the Clone Wars. The Jedi, always allies to the Wookiees, began leaning more heavily on their loyalty. But with the end of the war came betrayal. The Republic became the Empire, and the Wookiees, once allies, were now labeled threats to Imperial order. Kashyyyk was invaded, not by slavers, but by legions of stormtroopers. Cities in the trees were burned or repurposed as labor camps. Family groups were rounded up, fathers torn from sons, matriarchs from cubs. Off-world processing centers sprouted like weeds. Wookiees were shipped by the hundreds to Imperial construction zones, from the Death Star's inner hulls to the vast refueling platforms near Mustafar. The Empire mechanized what the syndicates had only hinted at. They catalogued Wookiee labor units. They outfitted transports with specialized binds and sedation fields. They used propaganda to portray Wookiees as violent and unstable, justifying brutal methods. Even Wookiee children were forced into servitude, trained to load supply crates, clean docking bays, and sort salvage. Those deemed too rebellious were experimented upon in places like the Maw installation, or sent to more sadistic captors among the Inquisitorius. Yet it was during this age of despair that some of the greatest Wookiee heroes rose. Tarfful, chieftain of Kashyyyk, became a symbol of resistance, leading coordinated strikes against Imperial outposts, using his intimate knowledge of the forest to elude capture. Chewbacca, taken from his home and enslaved aboard a Zygerian cruiser, escaped during a prisoner transport and joined the rebellion, eventually fighting alongside legends like Han Solo and Princess Leia. His growl became known not just as a warning, but as a vow. The Wookiees will not kneel forever. Even non-combatants joined the fight. Healers formed underground clinics for wounded workers. Artisans etched escape codes into decorative carvings passed between cells. Songs were crafted with coded messages detailing ship routes or camp layouts. Every act of defiance, every whisper, every howl was a blow against the chains. When the rebellion toppled the Empire, Kashyyyk did not celebrate immediately. The scars were too fresh, the tree wounds too deep. But healing began. The new Republic formally outlawed slavery across all its territories, and Wookiee survivors were offered reparations and resettlement aid. Still, many refused to leave Kashyyyk. They returned to their old homes, rebuilt with their own hands, and held long vigils to remember the fallen. Names were carved into ancestor trees, thousands of names, while surviving elders composed new mourning chants that would become part of every child's education. To this day, the pain of slavery shapes Wookiee policy. They are fiercely opposed to forced labor in any form. They patrol hyperspace lanes near Kashyyyk with vigilance. They fund anti-slavery operations across the Mid-Rim and offer sanctuary to other liberated peoples. Even Wookiees who live among the stars, working as freighter crews or mercenaries, often set aside credits for relief efforts. Their compassion is a blade honed by suffering. They understand captivity and they refuse to allow it elsewhere. Culturally, the trauma of enslavement is not hidden, but honored. During the Festival of Ashes, entire clans sing the names of those who were taken and never returned. They plant new trees in honor of those lost, each sapling watered with symbolic tears. Children are taught the names of historic slavers, not to remember evil, but to ensure it is never repeated. The galaxy, vast and often indifferent, has underestimated the Wookiees time and again, but those who have tried to break them have only made them stronger. From chains they forged purpose, from loss they grew legacy, and from silence they raised a voice so loud it echoes still. This is the story of a people who were enslaved but never defeated. Chapter 9. Legacy of the Forest. Wookiee contributions to the galaxy. To understand the true impact of the Wookiees on the galaxy, one must look beyond the towering frames and primal growls, past the tales of combat and captivity. Their legacy is not defined solely by suffering or strength. It is found in what they built, in the alliances they shaped, and in the countless ripples they sent through galactic history. Wookiees have never been a people of expansion or conquest, but of endurance and wisdom, and in the darkest epochs of the galaxy's timeline, they stood as both shield and symbol. Few species have had a cultural influence as enduring as the Wookiees. Their contributions to technology, diplomacy, and warfare are often overlooked due to their primitive presentation. But in truth, Wookiees are brilliant engineers and master craftsmen. Their architecture, while naturalistic, is highly advanced. The treetop cities of Kashyyyk are gravity-defying marvels, entire communities woven into living trees using nothing but organic rope bridges, shaped bark structures, and resin-reinforced platforms. These designs inspired rebel engineers during the Galactic Civil War to build camouflaged bases like the one on Yavin 4. Some elements of Wookiee construction even found their way into Mon Calamari cruisers, particularly in structural harmonics used to reduce hull vibrations in battle. Wookiees are also adept with starship mechanics and weapon modification. It is no coincidence that Chewbacca was one of the finest co-pilots and mechanics in the galaxy. Wookiees see machines as they do forest paths, not to be conquered but understood. Many rebel craft benefited from Wookiee-engineered shields or weapon recalibrations, often making up for their limited resources with creative, durable solutions. A Wookiee hydrospanner reconfiguration could triple a hyperdrive's output, though often at the cost of aesthetics or standard protocol. Their most profound contribution, however, may be ideological. Wookiees are loyal to a fault. This loyalty, whether to clan, crew, or cause, is what made them such potent allies. During the Clone Wars, they were among the fiercest Republic defenders. When Jedi generals needed ground forces on perilous jungle worlds, they called the Wookiees. When the rebellion sought aid from Kashyyyk, it was Wookiee warriors who smuggled supplies through the Shadowlands and guided rebel scouts across perilous terrain. Their bravery was not born from politics, but from principle. They fought not because they were told to, but because they believed the galaxy deserved better. Chewbacca, perhaps the most iconic Wookiee, serves as a living embodiment of that loyalty. Born in the city of Wroshyr, he was educated in traditional Wookiee arts before developing a fascination with off-world technology. Captured and enslaved by the Empire, Chewbacca would later be freed by Han Solo, a moment that birthed a friendship that would shake the stars. He became a symbol of resistance, flying the Millennium Falcon on missions that changed galactic history. But Chewbacca's story is only one thread in a vast tapestry. There was Audiobook, his mate, who worked with underground resistance groups to preserve Wookiee history under Imperial rule. There was Kashyyyk, his father, who served as chief of their tribe and fought in the Battle of Kashyyyk alongside Jedi Master Yoda. And there were countless unnamed warriors, scouts, engineers, and healers who fought not for glory, but to safeguard life itself. Wookiees also influenced galactic diplomacy. Though often underestimated in Senate chambers, their word carried weight among fringe worlds and planetary coalitions. Wookiee representatives were known for their blunt honesty and long-term perspective. While humans might negotiate for profit or position, Wookiees negotiated for legacy and protection. When the New Republic formed, Kashyyyk was one of its strongest supporters, not for power, but for the promise of peace. Wookiee delegates urged the Senate to outlaw slavery, dismantle the remnants of the Empire's labor camps, and expand ecological protections for exploited frontier worlds. Though not always successful, their presence reminded others of the galaxy's conscience. Culturally, Wookiees have had a quiet but profound impact. Their oral traditions, particularly the Life Day celebration, were adopted by other cultures as a symbol of family, reflection, and unity. Originally rooted in Wookiees' seasonal migration rituals, Life Day became a galactic holiday after the fall of the Empire, observed on many worlds as a time of renewal and hope. Wookiee art, with its detailed bark carvings and harmonic chants, has found its way into the halls of core world museums and academic archives. Scholars now study Shyriiwook, not just for linguistics, but for its philosophical insights, its emphasis on relationships, cycles, and spiritual harmony. And then there are the Wookiees who roam. Even today, across the Outer Rim, one might find a Wookiee mercenary protecting a remote settlement, or a lone scout helping colonists avoid seismic fault lines. They often ask for little, only fair trade, food, and respect. But their presence changes places. Communities feel safer, more grounded. Children are taught to listen, to howl back with joy. and when danger comes, as it always does in the galaxy's margins, it is often a Wookiee who stands first. In the Jedi archives, one passage written by Master Yoda refers to the Wookiees as the memory of the galaxy. Perhaps he meant that their lives, long and rich with tradition, anchor the fast-spinning chaos of galactic affairs. Or perhaps he meant that in their howls, their songs, and their silence, one can hear echoes of everything the galaxy has endured and survived. Wookiees do not seek credit. They seek truth, and in doing so they have left a legacy that spans not just time, but meaning. Their strength is legend, their loyalty sacred, and their place in galactic history immovable. Chapter 10. The Future Among the Trees. Rebuilding, Hope, and the Next Generation. As the morning sun rises over the wroshyr canopy of Kashyyyk, golden light filtering through dense mist and enormous leaves, the song of the forest echoes once again, soft, ancient, and alive. The echoes are different now, not of war drums or the clank of slave ships, but of laughter, of construction, of life reclaiming its rhythm. The final chapter in the Wookiees' long story is not an ending, but a beginning. The quiet, resolute march into a future defined not by pain, but by purpose. The fall of the Empire brought sweeping change to the galaxy, and Kashyyyk was no exception. Though the scars of war and slavery run deep, the Wookiees, true to their enduring nature, began the slow process of renewal almost immediately. Reconstruction on Kashyyyk took many forms. Homes once scorched by flamethrowers were rebuilt from salvaged wood, shaped again into their majestic arches by generations of artisans. The old sky bridges, some centuries old, were repaired by young apprentices under the watchful gaze of tribal elders, using both ancient techniques and newly shed galactic technology. Former battlefields, like those beneath Kashyyyk, were turned into sacred parks, overgrown with moss and marked with circular stones bearing the names of the fallen, etched in both Shyriiwook and Basic. The first major effort was reforesting the lower levels of the Shadowlands, damaged during Imperial fuel harvests and labor expansions. Guided by botanists from Ithor and scientists from the New Republic, Wookiees nurtured saplings from surviving seed caches hidden during the war. The Wookiees do not treat the forest as separate from themselves. It is their ancestor and their legacy. Each tree reborn is seen as a symbol of life returned, of spirits finding peace. These restored areas are now used as ceremonial sites where the next generation is taught not only survival, but history and ethics, how to fight and when not to. Cultural preservation became paramount. During the Dark Years, many traditions had to go underground. Rites of passage, lunar festivals, the sacred recording chants of elders. Now these are openly celebrated again with full community participation. Life Day, long suppressed by imperial decree, returned to the treetop cities in grand ceremonies. Red-robed figures gathering beneath crystal lights, telling stories around open fires. Children offering symbolic tokens to the forest in exchange for wisdom. Temples once hidden were rededicated. Ancestral drums were struck with pride once more. Perhaps most vital to the Wookiees' future is their investment in education. Wookiee learning has never been purely academic. A child learns to climb before they walk. They are taught to listen to the wind for danger, to read the rustle of leaves for presence, and to understand both the weight of silence and the power of voice. But after the wars, the elders added something new to their teachings: galactic history. They recognized that to prevent future exploitation, the Wookiees must understand the systems that failed them: imperialism, slavery, greed, and be ready to speak in the galactic discourse with wisdom and clarity. Young Wookiees now often study both Shyriiwook and Basic. They learn not only tribal wisdom but also star charts, protocol droid programming, and the principles of diplomacy. They are not abandoning their ways. They are preparing to defend them with words as well as claws. Many have joined the New Republic's Civilian Corps, offering aid to developing worlds. Others serve as ambassadors or cultural exchange leaders, and some, inspired by tales of Chewbacca and Tarfful, have chosen to remain warriors, not to seek battle, but to ensure it never again comes to Kashyyyk unchallenged. The Wookiees are not naive. They know the galaxy is fragile, prone to swings of tyranny and rebellion, but their philosophy remains constant. Live with honor, protect the vulnerable, and remember the past. Their new Council of Tribes meets twice annually, no longer as a wartime coalition, but as a cultural synod, sharing reports, managing resource protection, and passing judgments on foreign interactions. Each major clan is represented, and even those who live off-world are given ceremonial roles. The Wookiees have entered the galactic stage not as a broken people, but as custodians of balance. Kashyyyk itself has become a symbol of healing. Pilgrims visit its temples, scholars study its languages, rebel veterans return to walk the forests where they once fought, welcomed by Wookiee hosts with solemn nods and heartfelt embraces. Yet despite this attention, the Wookiees remain cautious. They allow no permanent off-worlder settlements, and all foreign trade is regulated through trusted intermediaries. The scars of the Empire taught them to be wary, and that lesson is not easily forgotten. Still, the Wookiees have not given up hope in others. On the landing pads outside Wookiee, young Wookiees gather to watch ships land from across the galaxy. Some carry scrap metal to trade, others offer hand-carved souvenirs or fresh jungle fruit. These moments are part commerce, part ritual, a way to honor connection without losing identity. Occasionally, a visitor will hear a child Wookiee let out a curious trill, pointing at a new ship design, or laugh as they mimic a droid's mechanical stutter. The forest watches, approves, and hums in quiet rhythm. Among the Wookiees there is a saying, "A tree grows only where the wind does not break it." In their long journey from isolation to enslavement, rebellion to renewal, the Wookiees have proven this wisdom true. Their culture, like their great wroshyr trees, bends but does not fall. It spreads roots deep into memory, branches wide into stars. It shelters those who need it and reaches always toward light. As this story concludes, imagine the forest of Kashyyyk not as scenery, but as character, a world alive with memory. Every howl you hear between its branches might be a child greeting the sun, or an elder singing of lost kin. Every breeze may carry the scent of ash, yes, but also new growth. Life perseveres. So do the Wookiees. Their story is not over. It grows among the trees, in the stars, and within every soul who chooses honor over conquest.